Hi, everybody, and welcome to another edition of ESG's Customer Success Unlocked webinar, a monthly series that's on a mission to answer that burning question customer success practitioners everywhere hate being asked. Can you get your product team to prioritize just one itty-bitty feature request, please? In all seriousness, our webinar series is intended as an opportunity to tackle some very important topics. We believe that needs some additional exploration because we're a lot like you. We're tired out, but fired up. We want some depth in the discourse. We want substance without ego. We want more than what you can get from a LinkedIn post that takes up 2 pages of your screen. We want to hear from people who have experience doing the things customer success should be doing, people who have ideas, and most importantly, people who have a generosity of spirit and are eager to share their points of view. We at ESG believe if we mix that cocktail well, then this webinar series can help our audience members nudge the needle of business back home in their jobs. Just a little housekeeping. I just posted on the chat to tell us where you're calling in from. Always interested in that. We'll have around 50 minutes of conversation between Denise and Bill and I. That should leave ample time for Q&A from the audience. But feel free during the conversation to drop a question in if you feel it's right at the moment. And I'll be scanning the chat, but also the Q&A, and we'll bring it in if I feel it's appropriate for that moment, okay? So let's get started. I'll introduce our guests. Joining me in conversation today are 2 individuals I deeply respect and admire and who have deep experience in the subject we'll be discussing. Denise Stokowski is the Group Vice President of Platform and PX Products at Gainsight, a company that's very well known to this audience and needs no introduction. But if you've not heard of it, first, welcome to Customer Success. You should check out their website, which contains lots of information, including this tagline. Gainsight is the durable growth platform for customer success, product, and community teams. Denise might need an introduction, however. She lives in Oakland, California, and is responsible for leading product management for the Gainsight PX, product experience, and Gainsight platform, including the core data capabilities and integrations for the Gainsight Customer Cloud. Fun fact about Denise, it looks like she'll hit her 10-year anniversary with Gainsight in October of this year. I'm going to drop Nick Mehta a line to remind him to do something to celebrate you. Also, Denise and I first met each other 10 years ago when I was the director of customer success at BMC Software, and I brought in Gainsight as our first CSP. Denise and her team onboarded and worked with my team on integrations. And I remember that the way she lived the principles of customer success in the way she guided the engagement. I also remember, for some bizarre reason, that we're both dog lovers. Amazing how the brain works. Welcome, Denise, to the show. Bill Cushard, sorry, Bill, lives in Reno, Nevada, and is the head of sales at a company called Dragonboat. Let me read you their profile. Dragonboat is the trusted portfolio platform for product leaders to strategize, prioritize, deliver, and improve industry-leading products. With Dragonboat, product teams can connect objectives with initiatives, build data-driven roadmaps, integrate with engineering tools for execution, and inform future iterations with past results all in one place. It's good to see Bill at Dragonboat because based on what I see, I think it's a logical step considering most of his 20-plus year career has been in learning and development. Dragonboat seems to want to be seen as the means for helping product teams produce customer outcome-focused products, which I think is quite laudable. Bill is very well known in the world of customer success, partly due to a long career in various roles associated with it, but I would hazard to say that it's mostly because of the popularity of his 2 podcasts. I encourage you to check these 2 out. Helping Sales Radio, when he was at Service Rocket, it might be still around, and Rebel Entrepreneur, which is his current one. Fun facts about Bill, he's written 2 books, numerous ebooks, and many articles and white papers. He's also a guitar aficionado who's been known to be invited on stage at conferences to entertain the audience. Bill, welcome to the show.
All right, good to be here.
Okay, let's get going. So let's address the thought that's probably uppermost on the minds of everyone in the audience, given the title of the webinar. Hey, customer success, should you take the high road and work yourself out of a job? The title, of course, is meant to provoke and to tap into the current AI-driven zeitgeist around job threats. But hopefully the audience is willing to overlook our shamelessness and be patient as we tease out what's behind the question. Let me set it up. Customer success has been around for more or less 20 years now, but it's really picked up steam in the last 7 or 8, I'd say. And let's give credit where it's due and recognize the tremendous work that Denise's boss, Nick Mehta, has done over the last decade to help build the community and to promote and drive awareness of not just Gainsight, but of the business function itself. Customer success is fully established in the business world now, and yet serious challenges persist. And a lot of the challenges simply boil down to the struggle many customer success professionals have in driving product adoption and in organizing the work and the energy to get technical problems fixed. Here's what I'm wondering. What if we're looking at this the wrong way? Wouldn't it make more sense, at least from the customer's point of view, for a solution provider to focus more time and investment in making the product better rather than investing in improving the service experience? Therefore, if it is to exist, wouldn't it make more sense for the customer success organization to redirect some of its energy towards working closer and more programmatically with the product and engineering teams? By working closer and more programmatically, I mean automatically channeling information to product from the output of the work with customers, work that CS does better than anyone else. The intention is to help the product team make the product even better. The stuff CS does well is understand the customer's business, their aspirations for the product, and having keen awareness of their journey towards value. Customer success could do this channeling by being much more effective at collecting and distilling customer data and sending that over to the product organization. Such an orientation seems to me to be the very definition of the word proactive. It's simple logic when you think of it this way. Customers are really buying business outcomes when they make a software purchase. Shouldn't it follow then that a better product is what customer success should ultimately strive for? So please comment, and let's start with Bill.
All right, we're talking about what product management should do. I think just talk to customers more. It seems like such a simple thing, right? I think many of us have experienced this who are customer facing people. The product team doesn't always volunteer to sign up, to be on every call or to call the customer. They hide in their spreadsheet sometimes, or they want to go through you. Can you introduce me to a customer so that I can, there's that, right? And that might be appropriate to do for relationships. On the other hand, how could it be wrong to just go into a CRM and reach out to a customer and say, I'm from the product team, I'd like to talk to you, show me some things? How could that be wrong? And yet we sometimes think it is. And Teresa Torres, who wrote the book, Continuous Discovery Habits, she has a section in there called continuous interviewing. Part of her methodology is to every week, you should be on the phone with customers in your product trio, which is the engineer, the product manager, and the designer together talking to the customer. So, I mean, look, we do this at Dragon Boat, right? We're sort of outcome focused and you have to know customers in order to do that. But if you're not talking to customers I'm going to say it again, you're not talking to customers every day, every week, every whatever, regularly, continuously, as Teresa would say, how can you really build the product? How can you escape the build trap? Very difficult to do.
So what if, that's all, of course, I agree 100% with all of that. What if the pushback might be, we don't have time? How could customer success factor into that scenario, I guess? And I mean, why don't we ask Denise for her thoughts first, and we'll go back.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing that we do embrace in our product team at Gainsight, we do want to talk to customers all the time, and we work very closely with customer success to do that. We do, however, try to work with customer success and the CSMs with their relationships to kind of make those connections to a large part. But we also want to make sure that we get like the stories behind, you know, a lot of times I'm sure product, I mean, this is kind of guidance I often give to customer success people is I don't want to just know the feature idea that a customer might express to you. I want to know what's behind that. Yeah. Like, why is it important to their business? What's making that an important thing? Because that's what kind of adds richness to product people who, believe me, just like many of us, are given way more things that we're asked to do than we could possibly fit in any period of time. And so one of the things and the values that I have for CS is, right, hey, if you can like bring me the story, the business reasons, as well as what is it that they want to do, we can embrace it more fully sort of as product people. And I think that's kind of one of the things I count on CS to bring to product, or know when to maybe engage us. Hey, this customer is doing something really interesting. They have some, gaps or other things that they would love to talk to the product team about. And I find that when it's introduced and we're introduced in that way, it's a really fantastic conversation. And frankly, even customers that are like kind of heated about these things, if you make the right introduction and give the background to your product team and give them a little bit of grace as they can't fix, not set them up like, oh, we'll get them on the line, and before you know, we'll have this all changed in the product. If you set up the conversation right, I think it actually can really start turning sometimes a heated relationship. So product can be a friend to success even in that area, as long as they're set up with realistic expectations with the customer.
Yeah, and I think I think I learned that lesson many years ago as an individual contributor, where I had to connect with various product teams because the customers were very varied and we had a big portfolio of products. But the ones I had most success with were the ones where I learned it's better to actually write up a case, meaning an argument why they should think about this, because here's what the customer is trying to do. Here's their business. Here's what they think will benefit them if we were to add something, or maybe enhance this product with this another feature or something like that. They believe this will give them a 10% increase, blah, blah, blah. That kind of stuff really resonated with certain product managers. And I developed relationships with these guys after a while, because I think when they saw an email from me at the time, this is way before we had kind of structured mechanisms to channel stuff, but they would open it up and they'd pay attention to it. So I think I like that idea of stories. I think that's really smart. Bill, any more kind of thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, there's this we're talking about this natural tension between a customer facing team giving feedback saying, yeah, but we'll lose this customer if we don't fill in the blank. And then you have the product team that's like, Denise said it, like, I can't do everything, right? And plus we have a product vision, right, that we're going down. So there's a natural tension here. And I think the bridge is empathy. So by that, I mean, if a product team should receive this feedback with empathy and with a positive intent, assuming positive intent from the customer team, right? The customer team needs to understand that just because the customer tells me they need something and I provide it, doesn't mean I'm going to get it by Friday. And so if we have empathy with each other, right, and we understand that the product team has a vision to deliver on, and that I'm trying to help a customer do something today, that we can come in the middle and make trade-offs, and empathy is the key to that.
Yeah. So maybe this next question kind of alludes to that or touches on it a bit. I'll ask it anyways. What's an area of product management that you think could be improved with respect to its direct and indirect relationship with the customer community? Now, I intentionally didn't include the phrase customer success in there, so I want you to kind of think about, based on your observations and your own experiences, what are ways product management could get better at really connecting with customers?
I'm happy to start, Peter,
Yeah.
on that one, because I think we've early in our life, when I was like actually in the customer or kind of customer facing organization, one of the teams that I managed was customer support. And so CSMs were not only getting inundated with product requests, and our product was much younger then, so the volume of requests was quite high, but also the support team were getting questions and things. And we said, well, this really isn't gonna scale. Support doesn't know how to answer these questions. CSMs don't know how to answer these questions, but we want a place where we allow our customers to express what they wanted. So that was kind of how we launched Community originally at Gainsight. We said, okay, we can establish a sort of place that can put ideas, but we didn't just do that. We said, okay, product, this is you are really the owners of this connection with the customer, right? Community is a place. And so we put in, we put in some mechanisms and processes to make sure that we were, getting in there, listening to customers, and it was directly product people. Like that was very intentional, and then that started to create a connection of our product team with those people that were actually using our product every day and their pains. And we've matured that incredibly over the years. So now we, even through that kind of our key, especially like our power users, right? The ones that are kind of in the product, living and breathing every detail of what we do well and what we don't do well. We've expanded that to programs, like we call them virtual customer advisory meetings. So when there's a feature area that we're exploring, when we're in research, that's a mechanism that product managers can directly say, hey, I want a slot. We announce it through Community. We solicit participants. We don't have to bug customer success, although they know what the schedule is. So if a customer they're talking to has an interest in an area, they can help highlight it. But then that creates that, again, direct forum between products and customers. And then we also now have boards, right, that are, we go through a nomination process. We really try to keep bias out of the equation, but the goal is get different types of customers and users. And that's something that we run in conjunction with our CS ops team, but it's product that mainly owns the agenda and the topics. And so Community was kind of the foundation, the seed that started establishing those relationships direct with customers. And then we've used that and leveraged that to expand our connections directly with customers. And certainly a number of them we know quite well at this point in our product team.
That's really cool. And I have a follow-up question, but Bill, I'm curious from your kind of like the way I'm guessing you kind of think a lot about the L&D side of things, or how you can help people learn from experience and get better at what they do. In this question, are there ways that you think there's coaching opportunities for product managers, or does the role itself kind of lend it? Is it kind of like not inclined to do this sort of thing, outreach, or is that something, maybe I'm misreading it, maybe it is kind of more natural for a product manager to want to connect with community, or kind of speak to that topic, that angle a little bit?
It's funny, you frame it in the L&D context, and I kind of have an opposite view of it, because when customers come in, or a customer team is channeling customer feedback to get to a product team, what a product team does when they don't do it well is they react to it in a negative way and say, wait a minute, that's not really what they want, in a way.
Yeah.
Right. Because I'm a product manager, and I know how we can design things, and I know what our strategy is, and I know what's possible. And okay. And if I'm really good, I'm thinking about the outcome and not just the person's, I want orange buttons in the product so I can, right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What we tend to do is criticize, in a way, the customer team or the customer, and then say, I'm not doing it right. What we then do is we think we need to educate them on how to give us better feedback.
Okay.
And so to your coaching, do we need to coach the customer team and like, give it to me better? And I think that is so wrong. It's my job as a product manager to synthesize that, and then put it in a way, and then communicate it back to the team about how I've received your feedback, what we might do about it or not do about it. I shouldn't put the onus on someone else to do something that's my job in a way, right? So it's not, I don't want to teach them how they should be thinking in my brain. I should be using my brain and my skills and my product management functionality to receive it and do the work that I'm supposed to do, right? So
Yep.
I think of it opposite.
Yeah, it's like empathy in action. And I was actually thinking about, L&D for the product managers so
Yep.
that they can think more empathetically and do what you just talked about.
And maybe that's right. I agree,
Yeah.
because product managers need to learn these skills. And these are communication skills, aren't they? How do I
Yes.
relate with my stakeholders in a proper way?
Yeah. So Denise, I just want to follow up with what you're talking about, that whole connection to community and how you guys are really kind of like programatize that thing and have structure around it. Does that imply you're actually harvesting good data about engagement and all that kind of stuff and leveraging it kind of more at scale? Or...
Yeah, so on the community, I guess specifically, especially in the product area and the ideas area, we do measure, for instance, like literally with every release, like what are the kind of popular ideas that we were able to deliver and communicate that back to customers that they understand we're listening. Although I won't deny that there are some things like, hey, this post we put out like literally 5 years ago, when are you gonna do that? So I'm not saying it's like it's all easy stuff, because I'm sure everyone in product and probably everybody in customer success has a few of those items kind of on their list. Like, why haven't we done this? Why hasn't our product team done this yet? So there are those things, but we do measure very specifically what are these ideas that we've been able to deliver. And we work with our community team to make sure that we actually communicate that back to customers, that they understand we heard you, we're happy to deliver things. And I do appreciate that sometimes those things still take a while, but that's a really key part of it. On the community metrics as well, we do actively through our community team really work to engage the product managers, and even our product operations takes a look at that and tries to, just make sure we're not neglecting certain areas. Because like in any team, you have people that are really good, super responsive, others not so much, and trying to get really kind of equal performance along that.
Yeah.
And just one comment I had on the learning and development, that we found that we had to do a lot with our product managers, mostly not to listen, but how to communicate back out to their counterparts in our customer facing teams, like why what we've built matters, right? So we've actually done, one of the things we've done kind of almost the most training on, or training series on, is storytelling. You heard me talk about stories. So it goes both ways. Like everybody kind of appreciates and things stick better when you put in the frame of a story, because the story creates that empathy, like Bill, you've referred to a couple times. People can relate to stories. That's part of our humanity, right? And maybe AIs can create stories too, but that is one learning area we've definitely consistently done with our product managers.
Okay, that's great. I think the stories tap into some part of the brain that's really primal, that allows us to have the emotional response to it that is otherwise kind of like missing from often communications. So what's an area of customer success that you think could be improved there with respect to its relationship with the product organization? And I'm kind of going in the direction of, based on my experience and a lot of conversations I have, oftentimes customer success professionals don't have the awareness I think they should have around the underlying environment where SaaS plays, meaning the cloud environment, the cloud infrastructure. Product managers do, because they're building applications that sit on top of that technology. So they have to have an appreciation for it. But I feel there's something missing there. And I guess what I'm asking is, do you agree? And how would you recommend that kind of gap or gulf be bridged for customer success to gain more of an appreciation for that? Let's start with you, Bill.
Yeah, maybe not so much whether it's cloud or not, but I would say customer success people should spend effort learning the product strategy. And then above that, learning the company mission, right? Because that is the context by which all decisions are made.
Mhm.
Okay. So it helps you get above, I'm on the phone with my customer right now, and they're saying, I'm going to cancel my contract if I don't get orange buttons by Friday, kind of a thing. Right. And it helps frame having the difficult conversation. I'm sorry, Mrs. Customer, we can't do that by Friday. Our product strategy is this. And so we're not going to do that. Right. Because that's empowering. Because when I'm not empowered, I hear something from a customer and I throw it over the fence. I absolve myself of the responsibility. I throw it over the fence. I'll send it to the product team, or I'll talk to the product team. But if you're really empowered and you know the product strategy, if you're a customer person, you're like, I'm sorry, Mrs. Customer, we're not, because you could make that call right there. Well, maybe not always, but there's a way that you could lead the customer and say, we can or can't do something in that moment. I don't need to go back to the product team. I don't need to go back to my boss, because I spent the time understanding the vision of the product. You know, that doesn't mean I don't put the feedback in. That doesn't mean I don't go back to the product team and, but you can empower yourself by improving on how you understand the business and the product strategy.
Yeah, and that's fantastic, I think, because we often say in customer success community that you have to understand the customer's business, but equally you have to understand your own business. And I think that's what you're talking about, Bill. And I think that's when that balance is what a customer, they might not be able to articulate that, but I think that's what they really appreciate, is you being able to marry the two things together. Denise, what are your thoughts on this subject around where should customer success maybe improve in the way it interacts with product?
Yeah. First, I just want to say, like, Bill, that was, I think someone in the chat too, like, very well articulated component of something that every CS professional can do. And if you're not getting that from your product team,
yes,
that's something you should ask for, right? Because the strategy, the beauty about the vision, the strategy, where we're focused, is you actually don't have to know everything from, we're not asking you to be technical people, right? And maybe some CS people are more inclined, but the strategy should be something, if you're talking to customers about the outcomes they care about, why they have your product, the product strategy should resonate, right, with you and your customers. And I think, Bill, you highlighted, like, in that example of the orange button, I think even in product, we use that too. Like, well, there's lots of good ideas.
Yeah.
Like, not doing something is not an indication of it's not a good idea. Right. But there is never enough time to deal with all the good ideas. And so what you want a great response is often, here's what we are focused on. And if you know the customer, you can dive a little bit deeper in the area, like, you will care about this. And often they're like, hey, I'm happy that that's what you're focused on. I can see value for me. And so the product strategy component and be able to articulate that is really a great way to feel like you're listening, you're taking their feedback, but you're saying, hey, here's what we are working on. So when we tell you maybe we're not building the orange button yet, you understand what we are focused on. And that should resonate with you as a CS professional as well, because it should resonate with what your customers are trying to achieve in their business. And if it's not, it's a question of maybe there is a bigger issue. Like, is that customer going in the direction that your product and company is? And that's a reality. I think it can be really difficult
Yeah.
in different phases where actually you are starting to diverge, and that tension becomes like actually real tension that you may not be able to bridge, because what the customer is trying to do maybe is just not frankly aligned with what you as a company and a product are
Yeah.
trying to achieve.
I think that's a big part of a role of someone in leadership like yourselves, who need to make sure that the teams understand what is the mission of the company, and to continually remind them of that, including when things might start veering off and why that won't make sense for the company. I want to bring in a question from the audience. Janelle Friday, who's one of our regular attendees, and really appreciate her attending. She asks, how would you coach leadership and a product team at a company that has the attitude, customers don't know what they need in the product, we tell them what they need, so their feedback isn't valuable? Do teams have that?
I don't know. How do you do that? That is such, I don't know, Denise, maybe you're smarter than me. I have no idea. I think there are people who don't realize they're doing this, but they're kind of being negative. And I don't know how to solve this problem, but I think that we as customer facing people need to channel the customer. That's our job, right? And not say not say the customer needs this or else, and not say it's the end of the world of it, but just say, I have a customer, 3 customers have told me, I don't know the answer, Janelle, to be honest with you, because I work with people like that, and it's very difficult to overcome that attitude. Denise, what do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I think as product leaders and product people, you have desire to be, I don't know, maybe it's like, jobs like we don't, it's kind of that famous kind of attitude. If you ask, if you ask what they want, they'll tell you something, and that's actually not the innovation you're looking for. So the way I think about it is like that there's part of your roadmap that is like, that should be in your strategy around innovation, those things that maybe not everybody is asking for, but you're saying, I'm seeing ahead. Like, that's what like the best product leaders want to do. That's what inspires them, that gets them excited, but that's not everything. Right. So it's really about balance, like within your product strategy. And in this world of SaaS and subscriptions, like you can't ignore your customers.
Right.
Like you just can't. Right.
Yeah.
That is where your primary revenue is coming from. And so to me, it's about like, how do we make sure within the product strategy, there is like the place for massive like innovation, thinking about that thing and working on those things that customers aren't even telling you yet. And then there's actually responding to guarantee no product is perfect. Guarantee like some of this customer feedback are real things that you ignore at your peril at some point. And so to me, it's not, you don't have one choice, but it is about kind of how you allocate within your product strategy for those different components. But that's how the main coaching I would give, even to product leaders that are thinking that way. Because you can't look at many businesses where like your current customer base isn't material to your financial and business outcomes.
It's kind of crazy.
If I could add something, I think that if I'm running up against that, the product team saying customers don't know what they want, we can have empathy for that. I keep going back to that. We can say, I know we don't want to just do what the customer says, but what I'm hearing is the customer is something else, right? The thing behind the thing. And so I think maybe that's relevant, which is why I'm sharing, right? So you're acknowledging to the product team, hey, I know we're not going to do everything they say, right? But they're expressing something. I thought there might be something behind it. I think there's a way to have that conversation. And back to Janelle, your comment about if this is difficult, that can soften the conversation by doing it.
I think you need to, you have to exercise diplomacy in those conversations for sure. Otherwise, you're just going to build up a wall. I like what you were saying, Denise, about in the subscription economy, you can't ignore customers. And that's the tactic I still use a lot. And over the years, I've done it quite frequently, where I bring in what I call these macro forces that affect business. And it's supreme arrogance of an executive to say, we don't need to pay attention to this stakeholder or this constituency because we have all the answers essentially. That's suicide, in my opinion, because the world's changing super rapidly.
Yeah.
And no one has total insight into what's coming next. And a lot of stuff's out of your control. And so I think it's kind of crazy, crazy talk.
And one other thing, it just occurred to me as you were saying that, Peter, that I think, is something that inspires me every day and can inspire like your product team. I mean, there's a lot of smart people out there, and there's a lot of smart people at your customers. And some of those conversations, they may be of the same ilk. They love to be thinking about the vision and the future and innovation and the space. And like, it's an inspiration for innovation as well as just, fix X, Y, Z. We get, you can find those customers that are, visionary to where they think this business, this area is going to. And so I think that's another kind of promising thing to emphasize to product teams. It's not just listening to little feedback, but sometimes they have fantastic vision and ideas that, can spark creativity in you.
And I think a smart CSM should want to sponsor that kind of a meeting and arrange it. And because at the very least, even if the outcome isn't going to be that product's changing anything, it'll give them an opportunity to nurture the company, to nurture a relationship and to continually kind of nurture some champion who's not going to get what they want at that moment, but will stay with the company because you're demonstrating true partnership there, I think. So speak to us about the tensions that exist for product managers. And I'm thinking tensions between, a sincere desire to deliver the best possible product for the customer, and the sometimes contradictory tension that comes from the executive team to deliver something that realistically is probably further out on the horizon. So there's kind of like this kind of separation between expectations. And so, first of all, does such a tension exist? This is maybe just me kind of estimating and guessing a little bit. And if so, what can be done about that? And so go first to you, Denise.
Sure. I mean, maybe another way that often like product management speak, you talk about the things that are like the big rocks in your product strategy and what you want to deliver, and sometimes smaller rocks, the pebbles, like you'll maybe hear language a lot like that in sort of the product space. And I think it is a very real tension. We experience that a lot, even here at Gainsight, as we look at prioritization and thinking about how do we know what works? Because what happens is sometimes those pebble or smaller items, like no question, they feel, sound, and probably are more tactical, right? And what like as leadership, and you want to focus on the strategy, let's not distract ourselves. Does this really help us close the next deal? Right. So there is like a tension between those experiences. Where I've seen it, work well is sometimes when you take smaller, kind of those more tactical items, but you take things like how many users does it impact? How frequently does it impact? They become more significant, right?
Okay.
And then so you have to kind of use, I would say we're not the best at this at Gainsight, but we have pockets where we do this really well, where we, use some kind of scoring rubric. So you take a bit of that kind of just sort of energy bias that we might have. Like, it's cool to talk about the big stuff. That's the strategy. That's, like you were saying, Peter, the stuff we want to make sure that we're in the market doing a year from now, 2 years from now. And it's important you not let go of those things, or you'll never get them done because they're big and they're hard. But where I found is a good way to surface kind of the things that sound so much smaller, but could actually have a significant impact, is using something like a Rice score, which is, combines things like the impact and reach of a maybe very tactical sounding feature. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the biggest way that we help at least sort of address what's a very natural and very real tension.
Scientific approach to addressing it. Bill, you're the head of sales at Dragon Boat, but you've got a product background yourself. So in the head of sales role now, I don't know how big Dragon Boat is, but does such a tension exist? Maybe from you, do you drive that sort of futuristic kind of pressure onto the product team?
No, I do the opposite. I only want us to sell what's on the truck.
Okay.
I talk to our team, our sales team all the time about that, because I'm head of sales, I'm in these executive meetings. I know what's coming. I know it's 6 months from now, we're going to have this whiz bang thing that our last 10 customer, we lost these 10 deals because we didn't have it. And now we're building it. And so all I want to do is say, we're going to have it. I swear it's happening. It'll be ready tomorrow. Right. We want to do that because we want to close deals, but you get yourself into trouble. These are customers who churn when you make these promises. And so I have a lot more empathy for what the product is delivering and when than maybe a lot of other heads of sales do. Plus, I don't want to put our sales team in a position to make promises we can't keep, or to look bad, or to say, well, you promised me red buttons and it looks to me like it's, pink, not red, And so I do the exact opposite. Now, not all sales leaders would agree with me, but look, we sell to CPOs, chief product officers. We sell to product teams. So if we start promising product roadmap items, let's say, these people can see us a mile away.
Yeah.
Denise is laughing, right? She's like, she knows, right? So if I say, oh yeah, it's right, we have that integration, no problem. It's right around the corner. Like, yeah, they know that means times 10, whatever, right? So I do the opposite, Peter, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Well, I think because you're old and wise now,
but that creates, okay, so let me say that also creates tension, because let's say our executive team, our CEO and our product team, when we don't mention things that are coming in sales calls, we're not selling the future, we're not selling the vision. So the trade-off is, wait a minute, if you just told them that we're going to have this whiz bang thing next month, then they will be buying. So tell them. But if you do tell them, it can steer the conversation off in a wrong direction. So it's, look, there are no right answers in life. It's all trade-offs, right? So yeah, that's what I'll say about that.
So, which brings me to, you knew I'd have to bring this up, generative AI. And I think that's a good example, Bill, where I don't think that technology could address this particular challenge. So how do you envision generative AI enabling more efficiency with regards to how a company studies the market and with how it improves the customer experience? Any sort of thoughts on that, Denise?
Yeah, and obviously everybody, and I'm sure every product organization everywhere is also looking for how does it affect your product specifically. But one of the things is I thought about product management, and actually something we talk about, I'm sure Bill and his product team are thinking about too, is a lot of what we've been talking about today. There are so many rich conversations that happen with customers, in every day. I mean, I'm like a big fan right now. I love our recorded calls. I download things from Gong.io, like on my mobile when I'm doing my walks. I listen to customer calls like all the time. There is not a customer call that I don't learn something, right, about like our product or how we talk about our product. And so, but I think there's only this little thing, this kind of, sometimes I'm directed to interesting cover, but sometimes I randomly pick stuff. And so it's just, if one of the biggest areas, and I know like it has a way to go to handle bigger and